Lords and ladies, I greet you. Let me first apologize for my relatively long absence. It was unintentional. Just a lot of things going on IRL. I was sick for a while, and then I got really sick over the last couple of days, but Zeus willing, I think I'm on the mend, and I think I should be back in a short while to full force, so to speak. Anyway, straight to the content of the video. I wanted to talk about this IGN reveal of The Outer Worlds 2, and I have to say that I thought it looked pretty good overall. We're going to get into the details here. And a little bit of a backstory regarding The Outer Worlds. I have played The Outer Worlds. I almost finished it, but didn't quite. And I was very unimpressed with the game overall. I thought it was very much a game that was a game, so to speak. You know the phrase, it's a game. Well, that was my feeling about the first part of The Outer Worlds. Namely, it was a game. It was okay, it was serviceable, and there were a few things that really annoyed me. One thing in particular was this really annoying LARPy anti-capitalism thing. Not that I have anything against anti-capitalism per se, it just was a little bit too hackneyed and too overdone for my taste. This whole idea of going against the corporations, and it just was really stupid, I thought. Anyway, that said, in retrospect, when you compare The Outer Worlds with, say, Avowed, and I have given my thoughts on Avowed, then you will of course notice that the systems, at least, in The Outer Worlds were significantly more complex and interesting. You had actual stats that meant something in terms of dialogue, and in terms of gameplay, and the execution of how you went about things in the game. And you could even have really low stats that would have consequences, sometimes funny consequences, especially in dialogue. So for example, if you're really dumb, which is to say you didn't distribute many points in terms of intelligence, in terms of your stats, then you would get dialogue options that would reflect that. Now, Avowed doesn't have anything like that, and so I have to be fair, The Outer Worlds, the original one, had a very, very robust system of stats and attributes that had actual effects on gameplay, dialogue, and NPC interactions, and I thought that was great. Like I said, I thought it was an okay game. Retrospectively, it probably was better than I thought it was, just because as much as I liked Avowed for its connection to the Pillars universe, it was thoroughly lacking in what one could only call proper RPG systems, so stats that have meaningful impact on the game, not just in terms of damage and what have you, but dialogue, NPC interactions, this sort of thing. And given all that, having looked thoroughly at the gameplay for Outer Worlds 2, I have to say I'm reasonably impressed. Just going off by what I've seen in the gameplay trailer or the reveal by IGN, it looks like the most impressive Obsidian game we've seen in years. Not ever, but in years. Graphically, it looks fine. It looks plenty okay, no problem there. And in specific, the systems I referred to just prior are obviously present in The Outer Worlds 2. You can see this here. You have options to help this individual, this NPC, with a medikit. You have other options available that you can see are grayed out because you don't have sufficient stats to make those options available to you. But if you did, you could take advantage of them, this sort of thing. The weapons look really cool. You have that thermovision thing as well. And obviously the dialogue here is reasonably funny because your companion is some kind of sadistic cult member who talks about exsanguination, which is a great word, by the way, and I think we should use the word exsanguination much more frequently in our discourse. But nonetheless, I think it is looking pretty good, all things considered. Apparently, in addition to all of that, Outer Worlds 2 is slated to be twice as large as the original game. Now, that in itself doesn't really interest me terribly, because size in a game can be nice, but you have games like Starfield, which are very, very big, but as the saying goes, the classic phrase, they are a ocean wide and a puddle deep, so to speak. So who knows if double the size is actually going to be a beneficial thing or not. I'm personally seeing it as neutral at the current moment in time, but if the game turns out to be good, then it just means twice the amount of goodness, so to speak. The other thing that this gameplay reveal shows us is that there are definitely factions in the game. Now, in theory, you have factions in Avowed, sort of, but not really. And it really just proves the point how, and I hate to admit this, how bare bones Avowed was compared to even a game such as Outer Worlds. Now, Outer Worlds 2, clearly, just based off the gameplay, has factions in it. So you can align yourself with the seemingly psychopathic, sadistic cult, based on the limited dialogue we can see, and I'm pretty sure there are other factions there too. There's just one thing I hope does not come to pass. I truly hope that Outer Worlds 2 does not revisit the tired, cliche theme of the evil corporations, and we need to oppose the evil corporations. It's been overdone, it's trite, and it's just not interesting anymore, if it ever was. Setting that aside, I really think this game could potentially be good. Now, of course, we just saw a very, very small snippet of everything. It's not much to go on, but the little bit that has been revealed to us show us weapon variety. There's a sort of acid or corrosive gun that you can use. You have some kind of mechanical war pick. You appear to have several weapon options, or probably have a lot more weapon options, come to think of it. And from what I remember of the Outer Worlds, the original theme of how it was being sold, it was meant to come off as somewhat goofy. And indeed, you see the goofiness in this gameplay, in a good way, mind you. Like I said, casually talking about how bad it is to murder people in the wrong way, as opposed to properly exsanguinating them, as the cultist indicates, and her criticism of her cohort's work, so to speak, is goofy, silly, and funny in a good way, as long as it's not constant and over the top. So we're hoping for a bit of balance here in terms of dialogue. And I would normally be somewhat hesitant to say this, but given what we can see in the very limited amount of gameplay that's available to us, I think the Outer Worlds 2 looks pretty good, all things considered. And most importantly, I think it's almost certainly the case, it's going to be a proper RPG. Now, how do we know it's going to be a proper RPG apart from the visual elements that we have borne witness to? Well, we know for sure almost for two reasons. Timothy Kane, the OG developer, the guy who created the original Fallout games, and Jonathan Gonzalez, another OG, goes way back, who, by the way, as far as I'm aware, wrote pretty much everything for Fallout New Vegas, which is a big deal. These guys are deeply involved in the project of creating Outer Worlds 2. And if their previous games are anything to go by, and the fact that they are basically RPG specialists, this game is going to be deeply, deeply RPG-ish, so to speak. It's going to have all the classical RPG elements, which, again, as I said, you can see in the gameplay. You can see dialogue options that are grayed out because you don't have enough stats for them. You see options revolving around equipment and gear and this sort of thing. So I think at the very least, whatever else the Outer Worlds 2 might be, it's going to have deep, complex RPG systems. And I think we're all at this point in time thirsting for that. We're all at this point in time really, really eager to get back into a game that at least allows you to explore different options, sometimes in goofy ways, sometimes in more serious ways. But let's say you want to play a really dumb character, a brutish character, who just smashes everything with this futuristic electronic war pick. Well, you probably are able to do that in this game. And if you want to play a sly, cunning, intelligent character who's maybe stealthy, you'll be able to do that too, just based on what we can see. Now, more and more information is going to be revealed about this game in the coming months. I'm certain of that, at the latest at the big Xbox reveal. But at this current moment in time, based on the limited information we have available, I've also read things online about the game, which basically correlate with what we can see in the gameplay and corroborate what I've been saying. I think we have a real genuine RPG on our hands. Now, setting that aside, maybe the Outer Worlds 2 is not your cup of tea. I'm not really into the kind of atmosphere of a sort of futuristic world that's all predicated on human beings. I like sci-fi fine, but I'm not the hugest sci-fi fan, I would say. I prefer fantasy and fantasy-adjacent themes. But given everything I've said, and what we can see, I think this game looks pretty promising so far. And we will see in the form of Outer Worlds 2 whether or not Obsidian still has its old mojo in terms of making great RPGs. I don't think they're down for the count yet, but as always, thank you very much for tuning in. And if you like my content and you like my takes, you can leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. It's much appreciated, as it really helps out the channel, and I will check you out next time. Thank you again, and take care.